All right, welcome back. You're listening to Bat Talk with Sharona. I am your host. My name is Sharona. As always, I thank you for tuning in. Happy Friday, Team Cargo Shorts. Guys, cargo shorts are so awesome. I probably own, let me see, 5, 6 pairs. They are regular. Next to yoga pants, cargo shorts are the lower body clothing of choice for the Sharona for President movement. Because if I'm not wearing cargo shorts, I'm wearing yoga pants, and both equally awesome in their own way. But if I gotta go out and do anything, cover a sporting event, cover a training camp practice or whatever, cargo shorts are the thing. Man, they're the bomb. You can stick your keys in there, stick whatever you want to in there. They're awesome. If you're not a fan of cargo shorts, go get you some. Get with the movement. All right, so we got Mike calling in. We're going to bring him in and let him introduce himself to you. We'll talk some fantasy football. Very excited to have Mike on the show this morning. Hey, Mike, thanks for joining me.
Oh, hi, Sharona. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I got to tell you, I really love cargo shorts. I mean, cargo shorts are mine.
They're the best. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, for sure.
So, correct me. Have I been saying your name right? How is it pronounced?
My last name is Valverde.
Yes. Valverde. See, I got it right once, and then I screwed it up. Yeah, I was like, I think it's Valverde, but it might be Valverde, and so we'll have him. So you're a fantasy football guy. I say this all the time. It's so, excuse me, I suppose it's becoming so cliche, but the fantasy football community really is the best.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, you got the nicest people.
Really the nicest people.
Right, and it's everybody's willing to help each other. Questions are getting answered. It's pretty amazing to actually see that kind of culture come together and for something that's so competitive. I mean, we are individually competitive either through our writing or through our drafts or whatever you may have it. But we're also willing to help each other out as well. So it's actually the way the world should be. But it's awesome.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Sorry I didn't think of it. If everybody interacted and operated like the fantasy football community, the world would be a better place. I completely agree.
Yeah, it's very true.
Yeah, we set an example. So tell everybody a little bit about yourself, how you got into, first of all, how you got into sports, and then we'll talk about fantasy football in particular.
Sure. So in particular with fantasy football, that came pretty much, it just sprouted off the love of football that I've had. My father was a consistent, season ticket holder for the Oakland Raiders. Now, Oakland Raiders, I'm talking, 70s Oakland Raiders. So, and then he sort of just, I think when I was born, I had a football in my crib. So I just became adopted into the football culture, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I remember having pennants and on the wall, and my wallpaper was football, my bed sheets were football. So I don't think I had a choice really on if I was going to like football or not. But what was it, like 1988 or so? It was late 80s. My friends got together and we just did this football thing. And I remember seeing like magazines out at first and just seeing them and going, fantasy football? What the heck is this? I don't even remember what magazines they were, but I was just like, well, this sounds cool, but how do you play it? So just meeting a friend and saying, oh, I know how to do it. Let's get it together. We got it together, and from then on, it's just been all downhill.
Downhill. No, it's been uphill. It's always fun for me to listen to how guys got into it. What kind of league did you? Your first fantasy football league, do you remember what it was? Was it redraft, dynasty, keeper? What kind of league was it?
It was a redraft. Still is. We're still together and going strong. But yeah, it was a redraft. So none of us knew what we were doing. We still heard stories about how, this guy drafted this guy drafted the kicker in the third round, so that's just because none of us knew what we were doing, but it's always good stories to tell on an annual basis.
Yeah. I'll tell this story a lot on the show, but my very first fantasy football league was a keeper league with some hardcore guys. And it really was a good introduction for me. I cannot remember a time when I did not watch sport. And, of course, when I was young, my father worked quite a bit. He was a teacher and going to school and getting his doctorate and whatnot. And I was younger, significantly younger than my siblings, kind of a late in life child, if you will. And so I was with my mom a lot. It was me and her, and we were best friends. And she was like the biggest sports fan you could ever imagine, and she watched it. And so that's kind of how I did, and we watched football together, and it was kind of neat. So do you have? Well, let me ask you this. Let me back up and ask you this. Tell us a little bit about where can we find your fantasy football work?
For most of my stuff, I do for DLF, Dynasty League Football.
Okay.
And I also do for Jet Press, that's on Fansided. But
right.
Yeah, but most of my concentrated work is for Dynasty League Football.
Now, do you have like a specialty, or are you big into DFS? So there's so many options now. It's pretty amazing how many options there are.
Yeah, it's really the fantasy football world is almost, it's almost like Burger King or something. You could have it your way, whether you want it, super flex, if you want it 10 tight ends in the league, whatever you want. Now, there's just so many different ideas out there, which is great, because if you like something, then that's what you want to go with. So the more people we get playing, the better off it's going to be, the longer it's going to, stay with us. So I'm all about different quirks in 10-season leagues. So yeah, it's pretty fun stuff.
Yeah, it really is. So, how many fantasy football teams do you have every year?
Oh, I'm a little OCD when it comes to fantasy football teams. Right now, I'm about 25, I think. I know there's a lot. If you look at the MFL, like,
some of them best balls.
Board, there's people. Yeah, there's people there that have, like, God knows, like, I think 500 or I don't know what it is, but something that I would never want to achieve in my life. Maybe 10, 15 years ago when I was younger, but for now, I'm pretty content with about the 20 leagues I have. Yeah.
Last year. Yeah, like in a perfect world, I think I'd have 50, right? I mean, I'd have that kind of time and attention span to be able to do that many. But like last year I had 12, I think, and half of them were best balls, but still it was just, it was overwhelming to me. Maybe I just need to, and part of it is I'm still learning auctions, and I'm still learning MFLs, it's good that way because I love to learn and be involved in things that are new and different to me. But on the other hand, when you're dealing with something new, it can become a little overwhelming. Do you have any tips for people like me who want to, who struggle with that?
I think that the best thing to do is sort of just look over what's best. If someone doesn't understand the difference between, say, best ball or redraft league, right? Just for a hypothetical example. The best thing to do is to contact yourself or someone that that has experience in it, and then or look it up, and see which league fits your personality the best, and then go with that. Everything is going to be overwhelming at first, just because people are dealing with so many different things. You got rules, you got rosters, you got point, all this kind of stuff. So I think the best thing to do is just look at what fits your personality the best and go with that. And then if you have questions, we have answers.
Now, do you have a preference, or first of all, let me ask you, do you play DFS?
I do. Every once in a while. I'm not a hardcore DFS player. So I'm pretty vanilla when it comes to it.
Right.
You know,
I haven't tried it yet, so I like to ask people because I haven't tried it yet, and I know when I do, it's going to be like, oh, I suck at this because I don't know what I'm doing.
No, you have a very good knowledge base of players and stuff. So I think what I would do if in fact, what I did is I entered free leagues at first because of, I didn't know how to adjust. I didn't know what to do. So I just entered free leagues. I did pretty well, and then I just amped up from there. About $1, $5, $10, whatever is your comfortable range, and then just go from there.
Yeah, I think that's a great suggestion, and I mentioned that my first fantasy league was this keeper league. This was back in, I think it was like, I can't remember. I remember either my first draft or my second draft. I took Vince Young as my very last draft pick, and that turned out to be fairly good, at least for the first couple of years. I can't remember if it was 2005 or 2006. Excuse me, which was the first year, but it was that long ago. And although I was a huge sports fan and followed sports my life, I'd never played fantasy football, and I really didn't know what I was doing. And it was new. You didn't have all these websites and apps. The internet was new. We had the internet. This was with a group of guys in New Jersey, and we did live drafts, and I walked into the draft, and I had I had a folder with I probably 25, 30, maybe 50 pages of rankings and, all this sort of stuff. And from there, I went to the Yahoo leagues and some of the other leagues and played the free league to kind of, for that reason, to familiarize myself and to learn and to see what other people were doing and for bragging rights and what have you. Do you have a preference for the kind of fantasy league that you like, redraft, PPR, IDPs?
I'm big on PPR. I'm sort of learning the dynasty
PPR's
thing.
Fun.
Yeah, I think all leagues should be PPR. I don't really understand why anybody would want to do standard leagues, unless they're just that's their wheelhouse. That's where they're comfortable, and I could totally understand that. But people who are new or just a couple of years in, I would avoid standard leagues altogether. I would just because it's just boring. I mean you don't get all the players like Devontae Freeman or Darren Sproles or any of these kind of players have no value because all they do is catch passes, and if they don't score a touchdown, you get no points. So I don't know. To me, it's all about PPR. Yeah.
Do you? Of course, I cut my teeth, so to speak, on standard leagues where where you had a full contingent, so to speak. You drafted, skill players, you drafted defenses, you drafted place kickers. But now I've sort of evolved, if you will, into I prefer leagues now with a little bit more variety and no kicker. I play in an IDP league where we have a team defense, but you also draft defensive players, and it's a modified PPR kind of league, which I really enjoy. It's a lot of fun, and I think that's probably my favorite.
Yeah, for sure. The PPR, I'm liking Dynasty now. A lot more than I thought I would. There's something about this.
It's a different
players.
thought process.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Why it's keeping players. What else draws you to Dynasty? Keeping players.
I think, like you mentioned, the strategy involved too, because obviously you can't just pick any player you want because in that following year you just throw them back in the pool as in redraft. But with Dynasty, you have to put some extra thought behind that. You have to look at the age. You have to look at the trade value. You have to think, progress a few years ahead and see someone like maybe Carson Wentz right now. Is he going to be any good? Is he going to be, horrible? What is he going to be? So it's all about what your thoughts, your feel, and your knowledge all coming together to make one pick, and I just find that exciting.
Yeah, it's a different. You don't really realize it either, but it is such a different thought process, and it involves. Excuse me, I'm sorry. My allergies are really acting up this morning. It involves really thinking. In fantasy, the thing about fantasy that I enjoy so much is you have to plan. You don't just plan your next move. You plan your next three or four or five moves when you're drafting or when you're working the waiver wire or whatever. And
Hmm.
it's that part of it that I enjoy so much. But in dynasty, in a keeper slash dynasty league, you're not just planning for this year. You're planning for multiple years, and so it takes it to that next level, don't you think?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Because you have to put all those thoughts together and making that pick. You have to encounter that. So I mean, even someone like Jamal Charles right now,
Yeah.
he's 20, I think 28. So he has at least 4 years on him as far as before the dead end running back age
Right.
that usually running backs run into, but you have to look at his injuries. So
Mhm.
it's going to be okay. Well, he's still young, but he still has injuries. So what do you do with him? And
Yeah.
is he worth the next 4 years? Is he not worth the next 4 years?
Yeah.
So all that gets into play.
Yeah, yeah. Jamal Charles is interesting, and I haven't so far this year. I have not bought into him. Not that I wouldn't. It just I haven't been presented with the opportunity to. But he is in the entire Chiefs backfield really is interesting to me. For the reasons that you mentioned, he's a fantastic player, no doubt. But as we like to say on this show quite frequently, Old Man Time is undefeated. And
Yep. Yep.
yeah, and he's going to win. At some point he's going to
Mm-hmm.
win. And how much longer does Jamal Charles have? And I have similar questions about Adrian Peterson. And
Mm-hmm.
at some point we're going to see that fall off, which is a great way, I suppose, to segue into guys, kind of guys that you like this year, and guys that are you avoiding Jamal Charles? And if you are, what other guys are you avoiding?
I like Jamal Charles a lot. So if he's in around second round, which should be anywhere between mid and later round, I definitely grab him.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do it in the first. Guys that I'm kind of avoiding right now. I don't like Le'Veon Bell. I don't like Rob Gronkowski where he's going. Any of those guys in the first round, I wouldn't draft. The reason why I bring up Gronkowski is because Tom Brady is going to be out for 4 games,
Right.
And then I think they have the bye after that. So you're looking at until week 6, and is he going to stay healthy? What's going to go on there with Gronk? So in dynasty, I could dynasty startups. I can definitely see him going in the first round because Brady's probably going to be playing for at least another 4 or 5 years. But I can see that a little different. Yeah, definitely. We never know, but so
our buddy
on where.
Yeah, I mean our buddy Mike, who is a huge New England Patriots fan, he and I had this conversation. At some point, Old Man Time's going to get Tom Brady. He's coming for him. Anyway, right. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Please go on.
Oh no, you're fine. I agree totally. So it's like, what do you do? And I think it's just based a lot of it's based on knowing your rules. I think that's the number one rule is to know the rules. And know what kind of setup your league is in, because different players have different values depending on what kind of league you're in and what size your league you're in, and all those things take a place into where you should draft a player and when you should draft a player. All those, so I think that's the number one rule before anybody would start a league is to read the rules, read the points, and know how many people are in your league, and then just go from there.
That's such great advice, and I couldn't agree more. And it sounds so I don't want to say simple, but self-evident maybe is the better term. But I've been guilty of it, not really paying attention to the scoring, or thinking that all fantasy leagues are created equal. And these commissioners, man, they be sneaky, and they be throwing some kinks in there that maybe you didn't plan for. So, and I'm winking. You can't see me. I'm sitting here winking at all the commissioners that I know who. Shout out to all of the fantasy football players who are willing to be commissioners, because that is a thankless job, and we love you for it.
Yes, for sure. I know. Can you imagine Scott Fish and his 480 teams?
Holy cow.
I mean,
yeah.
I don't know how I don't have the patience for that. I would. I have to definitely take my hats off to him, because to run just that alone is. That one is.
It's huge. Are
you in the 480?
Yes. I have been in. I have been fortunate, and you can't see me. Praying hands emoji. Fortunately, I'll continue to be in it. For the past 2 years, I have been in the Scott Fish Bowl, and it is by far my favorite fantasy football experience of the past decade. I still have a soft spot for my first league, my keeper league, my introduction to fantasy football, fantasy sports. And, I'm, you never forget your first love. And so, but yeah, it's the best, and I thoroughly enjoy it. And shout out to Scott for that, and just for everything that he does, in the fantasy football community. He's such a great guy, and that's such a wonderful, wonderful event. And, I'm very happy to be associated with it. So before we can let you get out of here, now, do you follow a particular team? Do you have a college team? Tell us a little bit just about your sports fandom.
Sure. So my favorite football team is the Indianapolis Colts.
Okay.
I like them. Yeah, even though I'm in California, I'm a Colts fan. But I also have sort of like you mentioned about their first love. Since I grew up in Raiders gear, and my dad going to Raiders games. Yeah, I always have a part of that in my heart to the Raiders. It's just how I grew up. So. And then college, Michigan, even though I'm in California, like I just said, but, for some reason I like these cold weather teams.
You do? Now, how did you become a Colts fan?
Interesting enough, when I was sort of just looking for my own team, and I can't remember. It was like a couple of years before they moved to Indianapolis. So they were still Baltimore at the time. Okay. And they were the 10th game, and they were 0-10. No, I'm sorry, 13. And they were 0-13, right? Okay. Right. So only 3 games left.
Sorry, it was a pity choice.
Yeah, exactly. And then I liked them. I'm like, okay, well, let's see what these guys can do. So I watch them play, and then they win their games, right? And then they win the next game, and then the next game, and I'm like,
you're good luck.
This is my team. Yeah, this is my team.
Aww.
So yeah, that's where it all started.
That's a great story. So now what about Michigan? How in the world? You need to get with the SEC program. SEC.
Oh, no. I avoid that program like the plague. I don't like.
Well, at least you've got a good coach now.
Yeah, really. I mean, I love how that, talking about a great story. Harbaugh and the 49ers now. Yeah. Harbaugh back with the Colts.
How insane were the San Francisco 49ers? I mean, how crazy was it? I mean, that's just the craziest thing. By the way, I need to introduce you to my girl, Sonia Greenfield, who co-hosts my Tuesday night NFL female show. She's a big Michigan fan, but sadly enough, she is a Detroit Lions fan as well.
Oh, she's had some bad years.
Yeah, the double whammies.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, did you have a favorite player growing up? Was there a guy that you were watching and following?
Yeah, actually, one of the reason why I became a Michigan fan was because of a player, Anthony Carter, and I just loved the way he played and followed him through Michigan, and then he went into the USFL and played for the Oakland Invaders, and then of course he went into pro with the Vikings. Ended up being Viking. So yeah, that was probably the reason. That's the guy I kind of followed through to the very end from start to finish. Of course, Peyton Manning, Johnny Unitas.
Sure.
Unitas for sure. Even though I never saw him play, of course, I was too young. But I just love his kind of story. A player that was cut from the team. No one gave him a chance. He's sort of the first Tom Brady, really. Someone that was awkward looking, lanky. Just didn't fit the quarterback bill. Mm-hmm. And he pulled through and became Hall of Famer, of course. And then Peyton Manning. So yeah, those are kind of my guys there.
Now, what about other sports? Are you a hockey guy? Do you watch basketball?
I used to be a really big basketball fan until I just got tired of sort of I can't say for sure. I mean, my theorist comes out in mine. That say that's fixed, I just don't like it. I lost total interest in it when the Bulls were winning everything, and I'm like, nah, this isn't for me anymore.
I can understand that. Mike, it was such fun to have you on the show. I hope that you'll come back. Tell everybody once again where they can find you on social media, and find your work.
Okay, sure. Thank you. You can find me on Twitter at RFL Red Zone. My work is mainly at DLF, or Dynasty League Football. That's pretty much me right there. So, I'm open to talking anytime you guys have any questions or anything. I'd be happy to answer. And thank you, Sharona, for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun. And
you're very welcome. If you want. Yeah, you're very welcome, and I hope that everybody will give you a follow. You're a great follow on Twitter, and we'll definitely have you back on. Thanks for listening. That's it for Back Talk with Sharona. Happy Friday. You can follow me out there in Twitter sphere at Sports by Sharona. Have a wonderful weekend. We'll be back next week, so stay tuned in, and don't forget to be kind to one another. Pick up your phone on the request line.